Welcome into the Hoops Cap Pod. Today we have a special guest talking about the Michigan State UConn preseason game. Andrew Talks Hoops. He's got a huge following on TikTok, a contributor to Spartans Illustrated. I can't wait to get into it with Andrew. Guys, I've been following him for a little while. He really knows ball, and I'm excited about the game tonight, even though it's preseason. Won't take too much stock into it, but join me. Let's go. Hoops Cap.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
All right, welcome into the Hoops Cap Pod. I'm Mark Snetto. Tonight, we will have one of those matchups that just feels like it's a regular season college basketball game, even though it's not. UConn, number 5, number 4, 3, 5 preseason, I think 6 in some polls, number 5 in both KenPom and EvanMiya, taking on Michigan State, who sits in the KenPom and EvanMiya polls, 25th and 22nd. I believe 25th in the preseason rankings. We'll get Evan's clarity on that. 2 blue blood programs, 2 Hall of Fame level coaches in Dan Hurley and Tom Izzo. 2 teams that don't really mess around with pace. 353 in tempo for UConn, 231 in tempo for Michigan State. So it's not exactly going to be a barn burner up and down, even with some of the athletes that are on this field or on this court. Let's get into it. We're going to take a short break, and I'm going to bring Andrew in, get into the minutia of it all. All right, we're going to bring him in. Andrew Talks Hoops. I think he's ready to go. Let's do it. Andrew, my friend, how are you today?
Good, man. What's going on? Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Quick backstory. I started following Andrew on TikTok because, yes, I'm an old man on TikTok, but I was literally looking for like basketball content, and his content is fantastic. If you haven't checked it out on TikTok, you're looking at exactly what it kind of looks like right now. There's a background, and there's typically a video that he's breaking down. He's phenomenal at it. I think, you're definitely crushing it there, but you're also contributing to Spartans Illustrated. And one of the things that I wanted to bring you on is pre-show. I asked you, tell us about this team. I think most UConn fans know who Coen Carr is. Jeremiah Fears' brother, Jeremy Fears Jr. is on this team. But outside of that, and I think even that's like a deep cut. Outside of Coen Carr, tell me what to expect in this Michigan State Spartan squad.
Yeah, definitely. Like you mentioned, Jeremy Fears really runs the show. He's like primary distributor. He was there last year. So you had obviously a good core of perimeter defenders and really good offensive players too, with like Jace, Jaden Akins, and then Trey Holloman. But then obviously Jace is in the league. Jaden is kind of back and forth between G League right now. And then Trey transferred into NC State. So it's like a really new cast of characters for the guards, but then you still have that core facilitator with Jeremy Fears. And he does a really great job at that. Like even in their Bowling Green game, he had, I think, like 8 or 9 assists. So really they're going to go as Jeremy goes. And then there's a familiar cast of Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler at the bigs. So those guys were around last year. And Carson Cooper is a really good defensive big. He's really good at playing drop, like playing in gaps. And he's just a really lengthy guy that can make things tough at the rim for the other team. Yep.
How big are those? How big are the bigs? Like for UConn fans that don't know them?
Yeah, I would probably have Carson at like 6'11" and Jackson at 6'9".
Okay.
And Carson's more slender. Jackson's kind of a little bit stronger, and he actually looks like he put on some muscle between this year and last year. But Carson is not much of a scorer. He's a lot more of a defender, and he's very sure on that end. But then we're definitely going to need some more scoring out of Jackson without the scoring coming from the guards like it did last year. And then a couple kind of new guys with Michigan State that should be getting more playing time. One is Kerr Tang, who just didn't crack that lineup last year, but Izzo's really high on him as a shooter. And then a transfer out of Samford, Trey Fort. He was a really nice scorer for Samford. Late in the year, he had like a 27-point game, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think he even had one in the 30s too. So he can really put the ball in the hoop. Obviously, that's at a mid-major level, and it's a big step up being in the Big Ten. But a lot of the things he does, I think, will translate really well. So I'm pretty high on Trey Fort. Right now, Kerr Tang is starting at that 2 spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if even early on in the year, Trey Fort is finishing games and maybe takes over that starting role. But yeah, that's kind of the quick rundown of the rotation. Hopefully I didn't miss anything there.
No. And if you did, I can guarantee you UConn fans don't know it. So it's I don't think yeah, I think you're good. I think you're good there. But what I was going to say to you is like, I know that SoCon conference really well. So if that dude came from Samford, he's going to be a bucket for you because he played under Bucky McMillan, who played that very high up tempo, Bucky ball, they used to call it down there. And now he's at Texas A&M. So best of luck to him. But no, I think it'll be interesting because one more question on the squad.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've retained, like especially in this like NIL transfer portal, the retaining players is so important to like your success for the next season. Do you feel like you've retained enough, or do you think it is still kind of halfway, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. If you're familiar with Izzo and how he kind of treats the transfer portal, he's not somebody. He likes the organic growth, right? He's a guy that likes his 4-year guys that between their freshman and their senior year, they massively improve. Obviously, there's been the Jaren Jacksons, the Miles Bridges that leave early, but he really does like that slower development. So it's just been a new world for Izzo. So he kind of dips into the transfer portal almost like as needed, where other guys are like, we'll take anything and everything if it makes, if they're a talented player. But yeah, Izzo still really likes that internal development. Overall, they won the Big Ten by 3 games last year. I think any expectation that is that high, and also they had Jace come to campus where people didn't know throughout the year he was just going to take over and really single-handedly win a handful of games down the stretch there. So, yeah, I always have to be cautious because I don't want to, sound too pessimistic to any MSU fans. But at the same time, it's like, how could that expectation be to win the Big Ten by 3 games again? The Elite Eight is obviously – they weren't a disappointment in the tournament by any means either. Obviously running into that overall number 1 seed in that Auburn squad. So yeah, maybe tempering the expectations in comparison to last year with that. But I do think they filled some needs in the half court with Trey Fort, because he's just going to be a guy that can put the ball in the bucket, and they're going to really need that.
Sure. And honestly, I think Tom Izzo and Dan Hurley have a lot in common. They, Dan does not like to use the transfer portal. There's famous videos of him, and he puts this on his social media where it's like transfer portal, his season has opened, and he's like laying down on the ground, like in the fetal position. So like he does like to troll a little bit and like do that aspect of it. But the reality is, like, especially with some of the folks I talk to, they want to recruit freshmen. They have no problem recruiting international folks. But if they do go transfer portal like they did this year, it's going to be value adds, right? So we have Silas Demary Jr. making Demary Jr. making his debut because he missed the Rhode Island game with an ankle. You have Malachi Smith from Dayton. You have Dwayne Coromo from Lemoyne and Alec Melander from IU Indy. So
I do want to talk.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I do want to talk about those guys quick. But one thing that's kind of funny with Hurley and Izzo, they just recently like connected on Twitter with Izzo kind of said something about the G Leaguer that's coming back and play. Yeah. So you're right. They do have a similar perspective on that. 2 legendary coaches that have each other's back on that is interesting. But yeah, some of those names you mentioned, I watched that Boston College exhibition.
Yeah.
The I won't be great on names, but the D2 transfer, that guy was pretty interesting to see if he can play some minutes at that backup point guard. And Malachi Smith, man, that guy, I'm like number 1 in his fan club after watching that first half. Like, he was just a dog everywhere. Yeah. And he's going to cause a lot of problems for opposing guards. And I guarantee tonight that him and Jeremy Fears will not get along. They're not going to get along. Yeah, because Jeremy Fears is just he'll talk, and I don't think Malachi Smith's going to be having any of that. And I think when Jeremy turns around after an inbound pass, Malachi Smith's going to be right there. So he's going to keep an eye on.
And he's going to get some more burn tonight too, because I know it's a preseason game, but Braylon Mullins is out with an ankle, like about a 4 to 5.
Oh, is he really? That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Okay.
He turned his ankle. But I'm saying this not with any expert knowledge in ankles. But what I've heard from his camp is that it initially they thought it was a really bad situation, like maybe a break, like something awful. But then after initial tests, they were like, okay, it's an ankle sprain. It's not a high ankle sprain. 6 weeks max. I've heard from his family's camp that they feel like it'll be less than that because he's always been kind of a quick healer. Mm-hmm. But because of how big these rosters are now, everyone has to get used to, if a kid goes down, unless it's like the NCAA tournament, they're not coming back, especially for an exhibition game or like games that are, not that it doesn't matter, but in the grand scheme of things, they kind of have to protect them from themselves and have some perspective there. So I think that's part of it. Same thing with Tarris. Tarris has a hamstring. We saw him at Big East Media Day. He's walking around fine, but I feel like in terms of like being out there to play basketball, they're just giving him more time. So I just these injuries, unless it's like something really serious, they're holding kids out longer so there's no recurring injuries later in the year. So I think that's part of the strategy.
Yeah, I think with Mullins, I know this, like you said, it's not obviously it's not counting towards the regular season schedule, but if there was a kid I would want to have some more reps coming into the year, because he's going to be a pivotal piece for this team with all the, pin down action, which he hit a really nice shot off a double pin down in that Boston College exhibition. And he has a quick trigger and a nice looking stroke. So, but yeah, in the grand scheme of things, there's no way he's a highly touted guy that he potentially, depending on how he plays, could be a one and done guy. It's like, you don't need to stress out this ankle in any way, shape or form. And it's going to be hard to really judge where UConn is at without Reed on the floor. Which is just because, I mean, obviously he brings a totally different dynamic. I love the fact that Hurley's like figuring out that he could go small ball if needed with like Caravan at 5 and stuff. Like that might be something he's able to like pull out of the back pocket in an interesting matchup come March or something. But yeah, it's hard to really know what like this team is made of without that guy out there too.
But what I'll tell you is that you're going to get a heavy dose of Eric Reiba tonight, the 7'1" center from via Maryland, via Germany. And an interesting name to look for, not because Tarris is out again. I would say is Dwayne Karoma, the transfer from Lemoyne, 6'8", very like a bigger build from Alex, a more athletic version of Alex Caravan in terms of just like a glue guy. Like in that Boston College game, he got at least, I was counting, I think he got 5 back tap extra offensive possessions on just hustle plays. Him and Malachi Smith are going to eat, like as the kids say, they're going to feed families. Like I feel like those two guys are already becoming fan favorites, because if you looked at the plus minus, Dwayne was like plus 12, Malachi was plus 7, and a guy that gets all kinds of heat for UConn, and it's Dan's fault because he keeps telling everybody that this guy's a star, is Jaden Ross, 6'8" wing that just really doesn't shoot well, but defensively he's pretty good, and he's had problems last year with fouling, was plus 20 against Boston College and plus minus. So those guys, those energy guys, those kind of like culture guys that have been around for a while, I think are immeasurable. And I think this is going to be an interesting mix of like guys who have stuck around their programs for a few years. And you might see some continuity in this game that you otherwise wouldn't have seen in a game with like full of transfer portal guys and new freshmen.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how both Hurley and Izzo treat this. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that St. John's and Michigan game, but it was like Dusty May and Pitino got together and said, we're going to pretend that this is like February or March. Like they basically played rotations that they think they're going to be going to throughout. I mean, maybe mixing in a guy or two here that they might not have, but for the most part, that had a real good energy to that game. And it'll be interesting to see if Izzo and Hurley kind of take it in that direction, because you don't really want to get too crazy with mixes and not get your main guys enough reps against good competition where you're going to turn around and start playing regular season games, next week here, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Or almost next week. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they treat that situation. I think we'll probably get 30 minutes of it looking like almost a regular season game, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. College basketball is yet to realize kind of like, or maybe this is a good thing. You know how like you watch an NFL preseason game, you're in the Midwest, maybe it's the Lions, maybe it's the Bears, whoever you follow. For us, where I used to live, it's, Giants, Patriots, Jets. Where I live now, it's Panthers, right? So like you essentially like look at those preseason games, like kind of looking at a couple of possessions and maybe a half of football as like the barometer. Yeah. And that's just not what these guys do in college basketball. To your point, Pitino and Dusty May were like, F it, this is a regular season game. So yeah, I kind of feel like that's going to happen with these two guys because they're way too competitive.
Why schedule it too?
Driven. Yeah, I mean, like,
right.
because I feel like too, it's like right before the season, I think it's a really good litmus test for both these teams because the Big East brand of basketball is physical. The Big Ten brand of basketball is physical. So why not bring probably the two guys you think of in terms of like physical basketball in those leagues together to test their teams? Like, just go beat each other up before we start playing bye games, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all Lions over here, by the way. We're in West Michigan.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah. It's all good. It's something to be proud of more recently than it used to be. But it'll be interesting to see how this game shakes out, though, and how those two coaches treat it. But I do want to fill you guys in on anything Michigan State. So is there any more questions there?
I'm curious, like, how you think the team will handle all of the action, because this is what you do. You break down film and you really look at the action of different teams, whether it's horn sets, pin downs, everything that UConn does from an offensive possession. Obviously, you're not seeing Braylon Mullins tonight. You're not seeing Tarris, but you are seeing guys like Eric Riba who can flare, who can roll. You're looking at Solo Ball, who's probably the best shooter in the country, minus maybe a couple different people, but he's in that conversation. Alex is an interesting, matchup. Wouldn't say nightmare, but in matchup for Michigan State.
Yeah,
Silas Demary, that's our first time seeing him too. Like, so how does he run the point against this defense? What are you looking for there?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think the toughest part for, I guess, really anyone playing UConn is just the complexity of their offensive sets in the half court. I'm sure a lot of the people that watch you are well aware of that, but the way they work variations off of pin downs or off like a zoom action where the typical thing is, double pin down, but then it ends up actually being a screen for the second pin down guy who's going to twirl off of that. And I mean, obviously you guys have shooters everywhere that make those actions really hard to follow. And what I'm really interested in is to see how Jackson and Cooper, the two bigs for Michigan State, deal with moving away from the hoop and dealing with being put in those actions, because they actually the bigs did a good job against Auburn last year, even though they were outmatched in the front court with like Cardwell and Broome. They're not on that level, but they did a great job because those are both back to the basket guys. Those are guys that get production through rebounding, which Carson and Jackson are both good rebounders. But this sort of test where Caravan's not necessarily diving to the hoop for a back to the basket post up, he might be, coming around a pin down screen and trying to hit a shot. I'm sure the guards will be helping on that a little bit. And I'm sure that Michigan State's going to scheme a little bit of kind of like stunting out towards that guy that's coming off those screens, but they're going to be put in actions that they're not comfortable with 100%. So I think when Hurley called Izzo, I don't think Izzo could have said yes fast enough, because this is going to put them in tough spots. It's going to be a film session that they're going to have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I tried to put out there when I knew UConn was not going to win the national championship going into the NCAA tournament last year. But one of the things I did say,
they made it more interesting than they should have. I know. Oh my gosh.
Right. And what I essentially said to, I had a guy who runs a Florida show come on my show. And I basically said, like, look, this is going to be a lot closer than you think, because as good as Florida is, and I had them winning, I literally had two brackets. I had Florida winning it and I had UConn winning it. Because I said, if UConn can beat Florida, they could potentially go to the, win it all, because all that confidence and then the way that bracket opened up would have been nice. But that's here nor there. But one of the things I said was exactly what you said. When you don't see these actions on a regular basis, it's hard to prepare for it in such a quick turnaround. And for most of that game, Florida was confused and basically gave up wide open shots that UConn had a hard time knocking down. If that's a normal UConn team that's got multiple shooters, kind of like this team does, that potentially could have been the upset of the tournament. But alas, we're here. Florida's a national champion. You and I are talking about
no rubbing salt in that wound. No rubbing salt in that wound. But outside of heroics from Walter Clayton Jr., they actually kind of outplayed Florida in that game, which just speaks so much to Hurley and the kind of coach he is. I'm always going to say Izzo's the best coach in the nation because, this background that I put on and my sweatshirt and working with Spartans Illustrated. But there's no doubt that Hurley has had the best stretch of basketball out of any coach in the country in the last, 7 years or so. No doubt.
What do you
can't even really argue with that, right? I mean,
right.
That's like objective.
No, it's very objective. And I'm going to ask you something that, you know, it's mostly done in a, I think most people that have interactions on Twitter, I hope at least it's done tongue in cheek and it's not with any type of like vitriol. But like one of the things, and that's not true also, but like one of the things that I think is the criticism of Izzo, and I wonder how you look at this, is that as good as he's been, as consistent as he's been, that it's almost it's not that it's a disappointment to not have won multiple titles, but like, is there some of that in Spartan land that essentially he hasn't won multiple national championships, having been close other times?
Yeah, I'll answer that in kind of a funny way, but I think Spartans fans would absolutely be in tears of him getting a second title, right? It's like been a long time coming. And obviously he's on the twilight of his career. So you kind of have this like back and forth in your mind where you're comfortable with the resume. He's a Hall of Fame coach. I wish I could say the total Final Fours off the top of my head, but it's over 5. It's, 6, 7, or 8. And and obviously I think it would be even more close to Spartans fans' hearts if he didn't get that one in 2000. Because like he is a national championship winning coach, but yeah, if he was able to get another one, oh my gosh, the icing on the cake of the career would be something that Spartans fans everywhere would be really, really excited about. But yeah, then again, he takes these teams that you don't really have high expectations for, i.e. the team going into this year, right? I mean, they're not picked to win the Big Ten by any means. They're picked in the middle of the pack, and he exceeds those expectations year after year. So you're never mad at him, right? Like you can't ever be mad at him, but yeah, getting that second title would be awesome.
He has 8 Final Four appearances.
Yeah, I didn't want to overshoot the numbers, so I started at 5,
you're good.
But I was like, I think it is 8. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And I think some of that criticism, in particular from fans of the team that I cover and that I've loved since I was 8 years old, the UConn Huskies, is the crazy outsized expectations that UConn fans have because of their success in the tournament, in the Final Four. It kind of skews the feel of that, right? It's like, I hate to say this, I know there's a lot of Red Sox fans in our fan base, but kind of the Yankees of college basketball, where it's like championship or bust. Yep. And that's just not really even though I am a Yankee fan since birth, I still don't even feel that way about watching the Yankees. And I don't feel that way about watching UConn, especially now that you have a closer view. I really love the development of these teams. I actually had a fun time last year covering that team that I knew was not going to win a national championship. Right. But sometimes I think a guy like Izzo is underrated because of that lack of multiple titles. He's gotten 8 teams to the Final Four. He, like you said, he develops kids. It's not like it's Duke where, they're doing more with less. You know what I mean? Like they get all these 5 stars and then don't get to a Final Four. So like, I got to give Izzo his flowers, man. He's been a great coach for how many years now? Are we talking 30, 40? Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Somewhere in that range there. Yeah, but, which is wild. No. But yeah, I think you're a reasonable sports fan, right? I think when you look at the odds of actually winning the title year after year is pretty tough. But then you're kind of spoiled at the same time that's even an expectation, right? Like the fact that UConn's done so well that has become an expectation is amazing as well.
And you probably know this. The only time UConn has lost in the Final Four and hasn't won a national championship, they've been to 7 Final Fours. They've won 6. Was to losing to Michigan State in 2009.
Really?
So yeah, because we had
that was the year that it was played in Detroit, right? And
then
it was,
then they lost to Michigan State lost to Carolina.
Yep. And yeah, they've had so many matchups in the tournament. I mean, obviously two powerhouse programs.
Go ahead. Were you gonna ask a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, I know there's always this blue blood conversation going on. Like, do UConn, because state fans are pretty like on the edge. I would actually go like, no, because I think you need more national titles. Obviously the Final Four is the resume, the conference championships. I think if you like sprinkled in a national title in the last 10 years, I think you'd push yourself into that conversation, which some state fans might be mad at me for. But are you guys in like, hey, we're blue bloods? Is that the territory most UConn fans are in? And it's not too important of a discussion, but
No, I know. I think most people are over that conversation, and not because it's not like a real conversation, but mostly because I don't think you can really. I think UConn. And I'm not saying this to be arrogant in any way, shape, or form. UConn has 6 national championships in the field of 64 era. It's not a, I know Kentucky fans, Kansas fans will get mad at me when I say this. Indiana, whoever. You can name North Carolina, UCLA, the whole deal.
Yep.
There's no Mickey Mouse titles in UConn's resume.
Nope.
Kentucky has, I think, 6 before they even got to the field of 32. So and I'm probably exaggerating. There's only 4, but still, like, 4 of them are like in the field of 4, 8, and 16. Like, what are we doing here? Like, do you think those matter the same as UConn's last 2 national championships in the NIL era in the field of 68? I think when it comes down to it, Andrew, what you have to do is you have to break it down to like eras the way that we talk about other sports. Like there's the field of the expansion of 64, then there's the transfer portal NIL era, and then whatever the hell era we're going into, now, right? So I think UConn's accomplishments kind of speak for itself. I think the only school that really can mirror that is Duke, because they've won all of their 5 titles in the 64 era. But even then it was different. 90, 91, 92 back-to-back titles is different than 23, 24.
Yep.
Those are my thoughts.
So you're saying it's kind of a foregone conclusion in the sense that it's a given. And I'm with you on UConn's resume. 100%.
Yeah, and I when people go, well, what about all those years you don't make the tournament? I said, well, those years are codified by the fact that UConn has won, all the titles in my lifetime. Like I'm 44. The first title I saw was 19. Think about that. Like I literally have seen all 6 of their titles in the last 25 years.
That is crazy.
Like, are we serious? That is
crazy. Yeah, I was joking with somebody, and this'll date me, but I was putting on like face paint at like a school carnival in the year that Michigan State won their title. So I haven't really like felt one, Yeah, I was running around doing nothing at some school carnival. So it's like, man, I am jealous in every sense of the word.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's a healthy conversation to have versus my team's awesome, your team sucks. Tom Izzo sucks. Dan Hurley's the best.
Yeah, we could go there. We could go there. No, I'm just kidding.
We could, but it wouldn't be genuine.
No,
just like don't think that would make sense. But no, Andrew, listen, man, I really appreciate you coming on. Before you go, what's one thing that UConn fans should look for on this Michigan State team, either offensively or defensively, that should spark interest, or just from basketball fans in general?
Yeah, I think that State, and almost similar to UConn in this way, they're always going to give you a barometer of your rebounding and toughness. Like they're always going to bring that to the table. From what I watched from that Boston College game, I don't think that UConn has any problems in those areas. I saw the guards hitting the floor. I saw the bigs getting after it, the best way they could. But yeah, I think that toughness will be something to look at for both teams, not to use something that's like kind of not measurable. But the other side of it that I'm interested in is the perimeter defense of Michigan State. They were really, really solid around the perimeter. They had one of the best differentials for 3-point shooting. Like it was the most negative in comparison to when the team was not playing Michigan State. And they're going to be put to the test tonight because they have a guy like Kurtang who's going to be starting that didn't get a lot of minutes last year, and then a transfer, like you said, from a completely different system that picks up full court with Trey Fort. So watching those guys and how they kind of deal with the perimeter, and then also how the bigs deal with the perimeter, will be interesting on the Michigan State side. And then, on the UConn side, I think if you can rebound well against Michigan State and kind of keep up with that tenacity and keep up with Jeremy Fears, I think that's going to bode well for the rest of the season in conference as well.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really good points. I think my keys to the game tonight, I don't care about the score. I really don't. I'm really curious to see how well UConn shoots tonight, because they didn't shoot particularly well against Boston College, and if they can continue that physicality without fouling. Yes. Those are the biggest factors for me in this game.
Yeah, so one person I kind of failed to mention, because like you said, he's kind of the most known player on Michigan State. But another thing for UConn fans to keep in consideration, and with not fouling, is how Coen Carr gets downhill on the fast break. And with Jeremy being the facilitator he is, he finds him more times than not. So if you can kind of stifle those strides to the hoop and get in front of him, make sure there's a body on him early, and make sure he doesn't have an easy angle for like an oop or getting a pass on the wing where it's just a 1 dribble or 2 dribble and he's straight up to the cup, because he does stuff with his athleticism that, you know, he could be in the league doing it. Like it's that kind of athleticism. And so it'll be interesting if you say, like, you know, kind of tempering the fouling, not getting too handsy, like I saw from some of that game, and kind of keeping bodies in front and being solid. Coen Carr will put him to the test on that one for sure. And getting just back on defense too.
That's a great point. I love that. All right. Well, listen, that's Andrew Talks Hoops. Real quick, before you go, tell people where they can find you, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Talks Hoops everywhere. Be nice to me in the comments. This was literally my first podcast ever, so take it easy on me. Mark is the man. He's been reaching out and supporting this whole time. So yeah, Andrew Talks Hoops everywhere, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, been doing it for almost a year now, and every second of it has felt like fun and not work. So it's been great.
If you're not local and you follow Andrew Talks Hoops, download UConn Plus. I know there's going to be a charge that's involved in this game. It's a pay-per-view type thing. It's probably, I think it's the only time UConn has ever done that. They're taking advantage of the fact that it's a marquee game, marquee name. Sure. So capitalism will rear its ugly head no matter where you go. So enjoy it. Enjoy the game. Enjoy Andrew's content. Come back to the Hoopscap. Make sure you subscribe to all of our shows on Big East Energy Network. Check out BigEnergyMediaPods.com. Great talking to you, Andrew. Good luck, Spartans. Good luck, Huskies. Yep. Roll skis. We'll see you next time.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it.